So first, we want to start with the migration concept. What it is? Uh, Migration is a multifactorial phenomenon. That is, this involves the movement of some people to other countries, to other borders, to other cities, and this has different types of implications in the societies, right? But it can be volunteer or it can be forced. And in force, we have like two types of factors that are the push factors, like conflicts, poverty, natural disasters, and the pull factors that are employing opportunities, safety, better life conditions, right? But it's affect the both than the region and also the destination societies because it represent a demographic change, economic change, and a cultural diversity change. But what are the difference between a migrant, a refugee, and a asylum seeker? A migrant is an individual who moves from one region or country to another, usually in search of better economic opportunities, improvement life conditions, or educations. Unlike refugees and asylum seekers, and migrants typically do not face immediate damage or persecution in their home countries. In the other part, the refugee is someone who has been forced to flee their home country due to well-founded fear or persecutions based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. And an asylum seeker is is uh, before and a refugee because it's a person that have fled their home country and is seeking for protection in other country, but they don't have or they are in the process to demonstrate that they are in real danger in their country. So it's like step before, and a migrant is more in general, right? Is when when people decide to move from different types of situations from their country, but it's not like they're gonna be killed or their lives are in danger.
Today, over 170 million people are forcibly displaced worldwide, the highest number in history. In Latin America and the Caribbean alone, there are more than 22 million displaced individuals, including around 5.8 Venezuelans in need of international protection. These numbers are not just statistics, they represent lives unprotected by violence, political instability, poverty, and inequality. But migrating doesn't mean the struggle is over. One major challenge is underemployment. Many qualified refugees can't work in the field because their degrees aren't recognized. They are forced into low paying informal jobs, often without access to basic services. Another serious issue is xenophobia and discrimination. Studies show that to 26% to 40% of Venezuelan refugees in Latin America have experienced discrimination, especially women and young people. In countries like Chile, Colombia, Peru, about 30% report facing hostility simply for being migrants. The result? Legal barriers and social prejudice combine to create a cycle of exclusion, making it harder for migrants to fully participate in their new country and new communities, and even harming their mental health. In short, the biggest migration challenges today go beyond borders. They are rooted in how we treat people and the policies we create to either include or reject them.
Migrant identity and stereotypes. Central America migrant caravans. Between the year 2018 and 2019, thousands of migrants from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador were fleeing from violence, poverty, and political instability, traveling groups towards the United States seeking safety. Well, that's what they thought they were looking for. Instead of being seen as people in need, Migrants were labeled as criminals, invaders, terrorists. These labels were used by political figures and media, especially in the US. But that didn't stop there. Former US President Donald Trump called them very bad people and used fear based language to justify harsh policies. These ideas, these false ideas spread quickly through news and social media, causing increase of border militarization, detentions and deportations, family separation, rising xenophobia and hate speech, and migrants felt unsafe and unwanted.
The right to migrate versus the right to not migrate. Let's start with the right to migrate. This is protected by international frameworks like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and states that everyone has a right to leave any country, including their own. And of course, this right is essential, especially for people escaping war, poverty, violence, etc. However, most people don't migrate because they want to. They migrate because they feel they have no other choice. As Chueca and Abuelo put it, freedom of movement becomes meaningless when staying is not an option. On the other side, we have the right to not migrate. This concept, introduced by scholars like Bartra and later by Bara and Fox, emphasizes that people should be living dignified, fulfilling lives in their communities of origin. This right addresses structural inequalities that push people out violence, lack of opportunity, environmental degradation, etc. It demands territorial justice and investment, real investment in rural and marginalized regions, so that living isn't a necessity, but a choice. As Bartra said, no one should be forced to leave their home to survive. So, which right is more important? As a team, we believe that while both rights must be respected, the right to not migrate is more fundamental. True freedom lies in the ability to choose, and when migration is the only viable path to survival, it ceases to be a right and becomes forced displacement. We see this clearly in places like Chiapas or Oaxaca, where many people migrate due to systemic abandonment and no opportunities. These people aren't seeking adventure, they're fleeing collapse. That's why we argue that supporting the right to not migrate means going to the root of the problem. It means addressing inequality, investing in communities, and building systems that allow people to thrive in place.
We also have to understand that migration is not just about crossing borders, it's about a shared responsibility. According to the UN Global Compact of Migration, both countries of origin and destination must work together to protect the rights and dignity of migrants. These include legal duties, but also moral and humanitarian ones. Countries of origin must address the causes of the forced migration, conflict, poverty, and lack of opportunities. They should also support and protect the rights of their citizens abroad and create conditions for safe voluntary return. On the other hand, countries of destination are legally obligated to process asylum requests fairly and ensure no one is returned to danger. Ethically, they must guarantee basic rights like housing, healthcare, education, and access to jobs. And when inclusion happens, everyone wins because in globalized world, migration is a challenge, but it's also a shared opportunity.
Being a global citizen isn't just about donating or reposting something online. It's about using your voice, your time, and whatever resources you have to make a real difference. One way is supporting refugee led organizations, people who actually live through displacement. The Global Refugee Lead Network, for example, takes part in big global forums like UN's Refugee Forum that matters more than outsiders speaking for them. We also need to push back against laws that criminalize both migrants and those helping them. In 2023, PQ reported 170 people were taken to court in Europe just for offering aid, and 76 migrants were prosecuted for just crossing borders. Education is also key. In places like Kenya and Mexico, groups like USCRI are running programs that teach refugee youth their rights and job skills. Finally, we all can do more to share real stories through art, podcast, whatever, to fight stereotypes and show migrants as people, not numbers. Because if we don't speak up, nothing changes.